We're live, Stacy. Hello, everyone. Welcome again to the Sacred Relationship Lab with me, Joanne Webb, and him, Stacy Taylor.
Hey
Stacey,
guys, how are you?
yeah, good. How are you, darling? How are you
Yeah,
doing?
good, really good. How you been?
Really good. Really good. I've noticed that people around me, maybe not so good. I don't mean my immediate people in my house, but I've noticed that there's like a collective thing out there that people are going through tough times. But you and I both know it all gets dragged up when it wants to be honored. So I'm like, but people are actually speaking about it, which is good. They're not just holding it in, because when we hold it in, it's really tough.
Yeah, we're coming in to, the more I go on this journey, the more I speak to people, the more I work with people. You're not escaping the journey.
You
You
never
know,
escape it.
you're going to either suffer in the pain of your own reality and not facing your own shit, or you're going to suffer through having to face your own shit and really heal yourself on the journey. And it's going to be brought to you through relationships. So.
Oh God, absolutely. It's like no matter what the relationship is, whether it's with money, whether it's your home environment, whether it's your career, whether it's the people around you, your family, your friends, your intimate partner, everything is there to show us what we need to heal or what brings us joy. It's both sides.
Yeah, there's a lot of joy on the other side of healing. Peace.
Mm,
Peace is probably the biggest thing I've found is that once you start to really bring these things to the surface and actually work through the unconscious. And when we speak about the unconscious, the things that you don't know that are there controlling your life and giving you the outcome on autopilot, and you don't get a say in it. So once you start to resolve that and dissolve the ego and come back to your authentic self, peace, there's nothing like peace after you've been at war with yourself,
mm. Here. I was just at a business networking group this morning, and one of the women, we were talking about what our words for the year are. And I was like, mine's receive, another one was play. And this lady couldn't get it. And I was just watching, and I could just see these angel wings. I could see this dove. And I was going, I think peace is your word for this year. You need peace. You want it's, I said, and peace, people think the word peace sounds so boring. But you know what's boring? Drama, gossiping, having to deal with shit all the time. It's draining, whereas peace is so illuminating. It's so revitalizing. And I'm like, peace is the least boring word in the world. It's the most least boring feeling. It's great.
Oh, if there was one word that sum up what men want, it's peace.
Mm. I think it's the same for women. It's the same for all of
Yeah,
us. We want peace.
yeah, yeah. Because in peace we can create, right? In chaos we can't create. We're at the mercy of our ego. We're at the mercy of that voice in our head that feels like someone's attacking us all day long. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really what healing gives you is peace.
Here. I love it. So, we are here to answer all of your relationship questions, whether it's about relationships with money, career, people, whatever, your animals, we don't care. What are your relationship questions? But we have got a few today, apparently. You've got a couple, haven't you, Stacey? And I've got one juicy one. So, do you want to give me one of yours first?
Yeah, we'll start off with a bit of a more gentler one, eh? If you've got a juicy one there.
Okay, mine's a hard-hitting one.
So mine's for a couple that feel like they're losing the connection with their teenage children that are starting to grow up. They're starting to leave. They've got some that have just left home, but they've got others that are coming up close. And how do they navigate that space? And what do they do, to work through that? And I'm sure that's something you've experienced on your journey. I know it's something I have. So
For
share,
sure.
share some wisdom, Joanne.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, isn't it, when our kids become teenagers, because they're so reliant on us when they're little, and it's very, very physical, and we have to be there. And as they get older, they kind of shun us a little bit, don't they? They just up until they're 12, we're their best friend. Once they're 12, we're not. But I reckon about 24, it can come back. Anytime after 24, or when perhaps their brain is more adult, and we know that the adult brain can happen anything up until you're about 30. So I think the connection does come back. And I think for me, on a personal level, I have stayed in my own lane. What do I want with my children? How do I want my relationship to be? I've I was thinking about this the other day as I was writing something about it. you know, if your self-esteem is not intact before your children turn teenagers, then you are going to really suffer. If your self-love cup is not intact when your teenagers are older, you're going to suffer, because we get all this beautiful love from our kids when they're little. Then afterwards, we're like, they don't want to hang out with me. They don't want to do anything with me. I'm losing connection with them. It starts to feel like we're falling apart. So the more we can be in our own inner confidence, knowing our own worth, our own, you know, filling our self-love bucket up, making decisions based on what's right for our soul. I think that's the most empowered place we can be as parents. And then deciding what relationship you do want with your children and being that person, living and breathing that. Like for me, you know, it's important that I see my kids often. So I make sure I invite them around for dinner every week.
Mm.
And it's like creating a hub where they want to come. And sometimes it's not that enjoyable. I've got to admit, you know, I've got a 16-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 22-year-old, and a 24-year-old. Sometimes they're all just loud and they all just talk and it's all crazy. But I've decided I want to keep seeing them. You know, I could just go, well, bugger off for a year or two and I'll come back when you're nicer. But it's about being the role model to them, I think, and creating those spaces to bring them back home.
Yeah.
That's what I would suggest. And making sure your home is a place of joy that they want to come back to.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, it is a tough one, especially if you haven't dealt with your wounding. Here's why, because what happens is we start off as a couple, we have our children, and then all of a sudden some breakdown might happen in the relationship, and then we turn our focus to our children and we're no longer focused on the relationship. So our children become the actual environment or the container that we are getting love from, because we're giving to them unconditionally. And when they're children, they can't really hurt us. So we may stay in a relationship that's been a little bit dull, a little bit numb, a little bit boring, that has some issues, but we just keep soldiering on with the relationship and we make it work. And then one day our teenagers are not so needy anymore. And sometimes it's when they leave school, it's when they get their license, it's whatever. And what happens is it actually activates this fear in us that we're going to lose them.
Mm.
We're going to lose the love that we've actually been drawing from them, because we haven't actually cultivated or really done the work to reveal that we are the source of what we seek. And so what happens is you actually, as a parent, will start to be a little bit guarded, be a little bit protected, and they'll pick up on that energy and it'll look like they're abandoning you or pulling away from you, but you're actually guarded up and pushing them away a little bit and actually proving true your own constructs and contexts. And so it's often a mirror to go and do some deeper work. Some practical tips is, like Joanne said, create a life outside of your children. They're not going to be there forever. Get your friendship groups, have your hobbies, have your life, have your whatever it is, your purpose, and build a life around your life, not their life. And we're not taught to do that in this modern world. We've never been taught that by our parents. So, you know, having your own space to get away and do your own things, and, you know, and then creating rituals, you know, that you can bring the kids back home. For me, it was Sunday breakfast. We always used to cook pancakes, bacon and eggs. So when my kids message me and go, Dad, can we come home for breakfast? I'm like, yep, that's us. See you this Sunday. And then, yeah, like Joanne said, create, you know, nights where you invite them around, get involved. But one thing I want to share with you is that if they're going out into the world and they're independent, then you've done your job. You know, I seen a reel the other day where they asked a bunch of grown men, I think they were from a football team or something, can't remember what it was, how many times a week or a day do you call your mum? And every one of them, bar a handful, said 2, 3 times a day. That's like, I just want to say that's actually not healthy for grown men to be calling their mother 2 or 3 times a day, every day.
No.
You know, once a week, or if mum's not well, of course, but, you know, you want them to individuate and separate from mum. You know, it sounds, you know, even when I went in the comments, all the women were all gooey and go,
Yeah.
wait till you're in a relationship with a mother's boy and you will regret it, because he'll choose her over you every time. He'll ask her for advice. He won't honor you. So, you know, one of the things is really just, you know, create a holiday, book a holiday. We're going here. Do you want to come? It's paid for, whatever, or this is your contribution. And just realize that they do need their own space. And when they're teenagers, it's not, one of the things I noticed with parents is there's this resentment when the kids go out into the world and they're not thinking about mum and dad, and they're not showing up in the way that I expect you to because I gave you that. And that is another thing that you have to navigate, is the fact that, they don't owe you anything. They don't owe you anything. You chose to be a parent to them. And if you can see that they're living their lives, and if you want to be a part of it, get creative, be involved, realize there could be some times when they don't want to be around. It's not that they're disrespecting. I think Joanne said, once they get over 24, 25, they come back to you and they say, man, they start to really acknowledge what you did for them and what you gave them and what you mean to them. But it's that abyss of the unknown of, they live with me, but they're not here. They could move out with their friends tomorrow. They could come back, but have fun with it. Have fun with it.
Yeah. And another thing I'd love to add, like, get to really know your kids as well. Like, get to know them as the individuals they are. What is their love language? Because that's a really important one. Because when you get to spend time with them, is it quality time? Is it words of affirmation? And are you meeting that love language? Because when we meet those people around, when we meet their love languages, it makes them shine. It makes them want to be near you because you're meeting a need within them. So, and also spend one-on-one time with them, but maybe it has to be things that they like, not that you like. Like, I'll go to the cricket with my boys, or I'll go to the rugby with my boys. If I didn't do stuff like that, I'd probably miss out on being around them. We go and play pool. I'm crap at pool, but I'll go and have a game. I go to the driving range. My daughter comes along, one girl and three boys. She's always been a bit outnumbered, but it doesn't mean that me and my daughter don't go off and go and get our nails done together. It's like, but I have to meet them where they are at. Like for Christmas, for instance, I didn't want to buy big Christmas presents this year. So what did I do? I've bought us all a ticket, and I've got 2 stepchildren as well, and my partner. And one of my sons got a girlfriend, so we got all of us tickets to go and see 660 at the beginning of March. And I think that is something that, we've got, our youngest is 14, my oldest is 24. All of us can go and enjoy a concert in Auckland together, and it's an experience. And when they all opened it, they were all as chuffed to bits about going. It's like, would that be my idea of? I mean, I love 660, don't get me wrong, but I'm always thinking of ideas of how we can get together as a family.
That is such an epic one. I got goosebumps just hearing you, because what that really is I see you. I see you, and in giving to you, we were just talking about this off air. We are the source of what we seek, but we've got it backwards. We're seeking something that we can only cultivate in ourselves, and that's love. So when I give love unconditionally, which that to me is an unconditional gift that pulls everyone together, that they will talk about at the next Christmas and the next Christmas and the next dinner, and then you've got something to build on, and you'll see, man, they really like that. So now you're like looking out for the next thing like that, and it fills your cup up. So be creative, have fun, realize they're not your little babies anymore, and create some experiences that really open that up. I love that.
Yeah, and celebrate yourself as parents that you've managed to get kids who want to move out.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. That's our job, is to set them up to be able to function in the world as adults. That's our only job, right? So if you've done a great job, but it doesn't mean you have to, lose the relationship, but it means it's definitely going to change. So if you can evolve with it, it can be another awesome chapter of your life.
Yeah. Oh, that was a really nice question. I like that because, it's a family so important. Our kids, we have these beautiful children, and, I think a lot of people out there are struggling with a relationship with their teenagers. So thank you so much for sending that question, and it was perfect. Okay, my question isn't quite so nice, but we'll go with it anyway. My friend is married to a narcissist. He is being abused. His friend can see that, but the friend doesn't know what to do. And the friend's kind of at the end of their tether. It's like, I am so sick of it, the repeated cycle. What can I do?
In my experience, the messenger always gets shot. So if you're the third party who can see it, we can all see everyone else's shit. And that's easy, you know, it's easy to be able to sit on the outside and see it. You know, how many times can you say to someone, man, you're just like your father, or you're just like your mother, or, you know, but I've stepped in and helped friends out, well, thought I was helping them out in relationships, and I ended up being the one being thrown under the bus when all the dust settled. So what I would do is talk to your friend and just say, if it's eating you up this much that it's starting to impact your life, you've either got to cut ties or put some boundaries in place that get you out of that space. And that can be hard because sometimes it's a great friend. But you know, if you're stuck in the middle, I'm telling you, man, if you go and be the messenger, you'll be the one shot at the end. Figure out what's triggering you, look at it, put in some boundaries around it, and then take yourself out of that situation so it's no longer impacting you the way. Because everyone, what I've learned is everyone has to come to the realization on their own. And sometimes stepping away could be the key. If someone's in a narcissistic relationship, first of all, good luck trying to see it. Good luck trying to actually, because the dynamics going on in that relationship are so insidious that that person is actually addicted to being in the narcissistic relationship. And then you're being pulled into it as well. So figure out what it is that's triggering you. Can you actually resolve that within yourself and distance yourself so it's no longer affecting you? If someone's coming up and spewing up on you about being in a narcissistic relationship, then ask them, well, why are you there? And leave it to that. Why do you keep going back? And leave it to that. But distance yourself if you need to with boundaries, and what's right for you.
I love that question. Why are you there? Because you're putting it back on them. I have because this is a man and a woman married, and the woman's the narcissist. And I was in a highly abusive relationship with a narcissist. That was my second husband. So I do feel the pain of this guy who's writing, because he can obviously see that his friend is just hurting and is being hurt over and over again. And I get that. But you know, one of the biggest, most powerful things somebody ever said to me, because I only confided in a couple of friends, and it was towards the very end. People could see what was happening. People got eyes, they know what's happening. But towards the end, I started saying some of the stuff that was happening behind closed doors, which was way worse than the stuff that people could see. And I remember this one beautiful friend, Nikki, and she just looked at me and she went, "When's enough going to be enough, Joe?" That's all she said. So she put it back on me. When is enough going to be enough, Joe? And that day, she used to be my hairdresser. I left her house and I drove straight to a place called North Harbour, Living Without Violence. And it was 9 o'clock in the morning, I think. And I walked in, or 10 a.m. And I walked in, I said, "I can't leave. I need some help." And they actually got a counsellor who sat with me there and then. And they supported me while I was leaving, because I needed to be kept accountable, because I needed some help. But all I can say from the friend's point of view is you definitely have some boundaries around it, because you've got to protect yourself. But your friend is on their own journey. And unfortunately, what Stacy said is right. It's almost like you get drawn in by a narcissist without even knowing. But when you look back, it all looks very obvious when you come out with hindsight. The problem is that when you're in it, they're very, very lovely to begin with. They're very, very charming. They're very amazing at what they do. And the abuse comes in slowly. So I'd say, you know, say in the first month, your friend might have just had one falling out. And then that might happen for a few months. And you go, okay, well, the rest of the time's great. It's only one massive falling out. Surely we can work through that when we're more secure, or whatever, you know. But then the fallings out get closer and closer, and the good times get further and further apart, till you feel like you're just on this knife edge the whole time. And you don't even know what to do, and you don't know how to get out, because you've literally, I think it literally changes on a cellular level until we can get out and heal from it. It changes us on a cellular level when we live in a relationship like that. But I would say, if you can, don't give up on the person, but instead protect yourself.
Yeah.
You know, protect yourself. You know, put your wall of light up, or when you have been with that friend, you might have to be like, "Look, we're going to talk about your relationship for 5 minutes, and then we're going to go and have a laugh, or we're going to do something else." Let them offload, but maybe it has to be with certain boundaries, and that's only you know what you're willing to accept.
Yeah, that's huge. That, you know, like narcissists mess with the psyche. So, you know, it's such an elaborate web that person's in that they cannot see it, right?
Yeah.
And they feel like if they lose that person, they're going to lose their self.
Yeah.
And so, you know, boundaries, hold your boundaries, distance yourself if you need to, and ask questions.
Mm.
Because if somebody comes to their own conclusion, it's on them,
Yeah.
you know, and yeah,
Yeah,
but
you can
it's a
ask
tough one.
beautiful questions like you said, you know, why are you still there? Or when is enough going to be enough? Or what is it you really want from life? You know, ask if you start to ask questions where the other person has to think, you know, what is it you really want from your life? And then they might say, is that what you've currently got? Can you see anything ever changing? You know, it's like ask these beautiful heart-centered questions so it's not an attack. You're not
Yeah,
attacking their partner where they have to defend their partner. You're not saying anything bad, you're just asking about them. Yeah, and you know, if they do complain, as you said, that question was spot on, Stacey. Why are you still there? Because it might just literally be, well, I'm frightened about finances, or I'm frightened that they're going to kill themselves, or I'm frightened that it's, you know, there's so many different answers. Like I was frightened to leave because I knew it would get worse once I left. And it kind of did for a while. And I knew exactly what was going to happen. And of course, then you're thinking, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to cope financially? And how am I supposed to even get out of this house? You know, the woman's never supposed to leave. That's what they say. I just had to run and leave. And but again, it's that having that inner strength. And some people just don't have that, and they don't believe in something bigger themselves. They don't believe that they can trust. But also, if you
and
can ask your friend to get some help as well. You know, as I say, I mentioned North Harbour living without violence, but I know there's places like that around New Zealand and around the world who are there to support people like your friend in a way that you can't.
yeah. Here's a really good question you can ask. You know, if he's got children, you know, you ask them, what would you tell your children if they were in the same relationship? What would you tell me if I was coming to you in the same boat?
Mm,
It gets real, right? Because they're
mm,
gonna go, they'll straight away go, I'd tell you to get the fuck out of there. But what happens is the ego comes in because there's a fear that they won't find something on the other side of that.
mm,
So, you know, it's a process. It's a process. And some people may never leave
mm.
because the fear of what's on the other side of that. But if they do leave, that's where they'll actually find their freedom because they'll take back their power and they'll never go back down that path again.
Here. I did find my power and I'm never going back there again. And you know what? I can spot a narcissist from about 50 miles away now. You know, I'm like, oh, there's a red flag. Okay, well, that's the one. Let's just leave that one now.
Yeah, yeah. Don't pick up the hot iron twice.
No, and there's a lot of closet narcissists out there as well. And also there's people with narcissistic tendencies who are not narcissists. So, you know, there
Yeah,
is, I think the word narcissist has been used a lot, but when you do meet one, boy, oh boy, are they, because
yeah.
they're so unaware. It's
Well,
scary.
the thing with a narcissist is they know what they're doing.
Mm,
They actually know what they're doing psychologically to you to get what they need out of it, right? You know, like a narcissist will sit there and tell you you're angry, or they'll tell you how you're feeling, and they'll make you believe that you're actually feeling that way when you're not. And eventually they break down all of your boundaries.
mm,
You can't trust your own thoughts and feelings. So now you're lost in the abyss
yeah.
till it gets so bad that someone says something and you go, fuck, I'm dying. Literally, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually dying here. So,
Yeah, definitely
you know,
messes
but
with you.
don't go down with the ship.
No, protect yourself, protect your boundaries, and continue loving your friends. And if that has to be from afar, it has to be from afar. But you know, always just send them love.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm. Told you that was a big juicy question, Stacey. It's a big one. It's a hard hitting one.
yeah, yeah. It is tough when you see someone you care about, you know, going through pain and going through suffering, and you know that they deserve so much more, but until they know what they deserve, that's their journey to awaken to that. And
Mm,
sometimes just pulling back or asking the question can be the actual catalyst of them going, fuck, I'm actually losing everything here.
mm. And if they
And
know
it can,
you're going to be there, if they did leave, that might be the biggest thing for them. You know, maybe if you could just give them that reassurance, you know, I'm here for you, mate. I'll be here for you no matter what. And if you need to leave, you can rely on me, because sometimes we just need that person to know that we've got that bit of light somewhere as well.
yeah.
Mm.
But don't let your light go out. Like, That's where your boundaries come in, and they've got to be pretty, non-negotiable,
Mm.
and just hold to them. So yeah.
Good luck. And if you need any refinement on that question, come back to us, because I know it's a big topic, a very big topic.
And a lot of these things are simple, but they're not easy.
Mm.
A lot of these concepts that we're bringing to you, they're very simple if you are in a place that you can actually action them. But often that's actually our work, getting to a space where we can actually action what we know is right without fear of consequence.
Mm.
Right? Once we know in ourselves that, I always say I love you, but I love me more.
Mm.
You try that concept when you want to choose something, and someone you love you'll almost always bow down, because you're being conditioned to give away your sovereignty, to give away your power, to put other people first. And the ultimate form of self-love is self-respect. So until you can respect yourself, you're actually choosing to be disrespected.
Mm. Yeah. Very wise words.
Mm.
Big. Whew. What's the next question then, Stacy?
Yep. So I got one from a guy who's saying, how do I create more intimacy within my relationship? I feel like it's become dull. It's become like I'm living with a flatmate.
You've
That
got
was
to,
it.
well, yeah, do things you've never done before. That's what I'd say. I think we've talked about this on the show before. Once a month, go on a date that you've never done before. Go and do new experiences, see each other in a new light. Because I think when you've been with somebody for a long time, because remember, intimacy is not about sex, intimacy is about trust. First question as well, can you trust each other with your emotions? Because if you can't trust each other with your emotions, if you can't say exactly how you're feeling when you're feeling, and if your partner can't, I'd definitely go and work on that. Because that is huge. How do you react when your partner says something about their emotions? How does your partner react when you say about your emotions, if you are talking about them? Because intimacy is based on being on trust, and emotional trust, emotional safety is one of the biggest ones in a relationship. I'd look to see if there's any resentment there, because resentment and anger is usually the two things that get in the way of being intimate. So is there any resentment built up on your side, and anger? Is there any resentment and anger built up with your partner? And that's just sitting down, having a courageous conversation about it. Hey, is there anything we need to clear? Is there anything you want to talk about? Is there anything that has never been sorted? How do you deal with conflict? Because if you deal with conflict by just forgetting about it and it never gets sorted, well, then that's where the resentment and the anger start to build up. See, there's never just one answer. There's always it's like a spider graph. We have to do different things. But then, when you think about those things, then go on some dates, go and pick a different restaurant once a month that you've never gone to, or even if it's just a takeaway or whatever, or go for a different walk you've never been on, choose a different pathway, go arrange something for each other, choose 1 month you decide, pick something, next month she or he decides to something, whatever it is. It's like, go axe throwing. It doesn't matter what it is. Try something. You go abseiling. But when we see each other in a different light, it creates interest. It creates an experience. It brings us together. They would be my top tips right now. I think they all work for me.
Yeah, those are beautiful. Those are beautiful. And because of the questions being asked from a male's point of view, Joanne touched on something very, very important there: resentment. Men, like, I experienced this in my own life. I started to resent my wife because I felt like she was giving my children more love than she was giving me, but she was actually just proving the fact of my construct of I'm not loved, but I couldn't see it. It took years for me to see that. So, just look at, how you feel, what's been going on, what's underneath the resentment, frustration, anger, guilt, shame. Go deal with it. Go deal with it. The more I go on this journey, the more I believe that men need to take their shit outside of their relationship and go and talk to a man. Either whether it's me, or you find a really solid group of men, 1 or 2 men that you can actually have real, raw, honest conversations with around that, and then take the lead. If you want intimacy that leads to incredible sex, take the fucking lead. Like Joanne said with her children, she knew that if she got them to 660, it would be an epic experience, right? Love language or not. What does my wife love? What sets her soul on fire? Where do I pick up? Oh, she wanted to go to that concert. listen, and surprise her. Like, so many men are afraid of getting it wrong, right? So they are, oh, do you want to go on this? Do you want to go to this concert? Do you want to go to this date? Do you want to do, fuck, I just do it. Like last year, JP Cooper's coming to New Zealand. I'm just like, we're fucking going to JP Cooper. I booked the tickets, I booked the apartment, I handed it to my wife. I said, we're going here on this day, on this night, we're staying here. Boom. Fucking boom.
It does. It creates an amazing thing because the women are usually the ones doing it. Like Christmas Eve, my partner booked us into this little tiny restaurant that you can never get into, just locally. And for Christmas Eve, which is like usually one of my busiest nights of the year, we went out for dinner, and it was like magic. He could have just taken me for fish and chips up the mountain; it wouldn't have mattered. But it's the fact that it was arranged, and I didn't have to do any of it. It was fabulous. So
if you take it off a woman's plate, right? If you take it off a woman's plate, the decision making, right? And you make the decision. Now that's being intuitive and not going, I'm going to do this because that's what I want. Now, don't get me wrong, mix it up, right? Do some things that you love, do some things that she would love. But, you know, like just take the lead and watch what fucking happens when, I'm sure, Joanne, because you had no decisions to make, you seen your man had made an effort, got you into a restaurant, organized it all, that
I
the
was
whole
floating,
night
man. I was floating.
just like, yeah. And
It's
then the
great.
bliss of that flows over on the other side of that is so powerful. So if it's attractive, like if it is attractive, men are meant to lead, right? So
And then
lead.
you're totally. And another tip I'd say is don't watch TV. I don't know what you do at the end of the night, but that's one of the biggest passion killers ever known. Do you do things like cook together? Do you have some music on in the background? Do you have fun together? I think I've mentioned as well, but we sometimes like sit down and say, come on, let's play Connect Four. Come on, let's play a game. And he's like, but then when we do it, it's a right laugh. The kids join in, whatever. It's like, but it creates an experience where you're doing something together. You're not just watching some mindless crap. Read a book together, listen to an audio book together, listen to podcasts together, and then you can talk about it. Have things that you can discuss and connect over, whatever works for you. It might be sport, it could be anything, it could be knitting. I don't care. But find out some common ground that you can have good conversations about and a good laugh. Laughter is one of the best things to bring people together in intimacy, I would say.
Yeah. Just effort. Like, same phones. Don't take your phones in the fucking bedroom. Like it'll kill the TV, the phone is the new TV, right? And so, intimacy is about connection, for men, be present. So if you go out and take her on a date, nothing else in the fucking world matters unless your children are dying. Like, I don't give a fuck if the world's falling down around you. Be present with her. See her, be present and watch. Like when a woman feels safe, when she feels seen and held, that's intimacy.
Yeah. And it's beautiful, and you reap the rewards. Anything that you're going to put into this journey is never wasted. Even, it might fall on deaf ears, but it's never wasted. It'll either make you or break you. And it's like one of those things, where do you want to go with your relationship? You don't want to be flatmates. You want it to be different. So you be the difference.
Yeah, and if you put in that effort and it's still not right, then there might be another decision on the other side of that, right? Or a conversation.
Exactly, but that's what I mean. It's never going to be wasted effort.
Definitely.
You're going to get to know something. I hope that's helped, because that was a good question as well. Because again, I think I see so many people who are in sexless marriages, loveless marriages. And I heard something today, like, the amount of time, the amount of years you've been married doesn't mean you've had a successful marriage just because you've been married 50 years. It's the quality of how you felt in that marriage. That's what makes it, is it a successful marriage or not? So, or a relationship, whatever. But it's like, are you happy? And if your intimacy is not there and you're not happy, well, then it's something that's got to be worked on. So.
And that's probably our biggest conditioning in relationships today. We watched our grandparents and parents stay in relationships their entire life and be miserable, right? Settle and be miserable, right? You've then got the church that says, you've got to marry that person and stay with them. Listen to the vows, right? So conditioned to give up our sovereignty, our love, our joy, our expression to stay in something that no longer serves us. that's the ultimate form of disrespect to yourself, no one else.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're not thriving, no one else is going to thrive. And once it becomes numb, you're actually in love with what, you're in love with what the ego's fantasy of that relationship could be.
Mm.
And that's something, when you see that, sometimes it will hit you like a Mack truck, like, holy fuck, I've been in love with the idea of what it could be for 10, 20, 30 years and not what it actually is. And that's another big thing to see, because stepping out of something like that, ooh,
Yeah.
everything's going to change, 30, 40, 50 years old, and you're going to go a different path. Watch all of your fears come to the surface.
But you know what? I'm watching people around me at the minute doing it, and I'm watching them thrive, and it just looks so good. It looks so good on them.
I heard something the other day. I'll try and find the post, but the lady said, that if you marry in your 20s, even your 30s, it's usually a byproduct of your childhood. You're literally going to marry the frequency of the love, of the unresolved trauma that you have with a parent, and you're going to create your childhood, but you won't be able to see it. And the more I looked at it, I'm like,
That's
that is
exactly it.
true.
Yeah.
They call it a midlife crisis. You're always in crisis. It just took to your midlife to see that what you've been trying to get from that person, you could never get it. And the illusion is that you could get it back the way you felt in the beginning. And I was just like, wow, this stuff's wild.
It's it, and that's so potent, and it's so true. It's so true. And that's why, I see a lot of people now, oh, this is how marriage is supposed to be. I'm like, no, it's not. Who told you that? Oh, we're not, we only have sex once a year. That's how marriage is supposed to be when you've been married 27 years. Is it? Because honestly, I would literally prefer to just be on my own and live in a cottage and not see anybody if that was the case.
I used to work with guys that used to say it was their birthday. Oh, I'm going to get sex tonight. It was Christmas. And I'm like, I remember asking them one day, and I'm like, do you get it much outside of that? And they're like, oh, fuck off. I'm like, nah, you're fucking. I'm like, nah, you're taking the piss. And they're like, nah. And they're like, why is it different for you? I'm like, yeah. Like, what? Fuck, once a week? I'm like, 2, 3, 4, depending on the week. Fuck off, they reckon. And I'm like, nah, fuck that. So if you're not enjoying if you're not in a relationship where sex is present, now that's more men, but for men to create that, that's where the intimacy, trust, safety comes in for the woman. Fuck, life's too short not to be enjoying incredible, mind-blowing sex and connecting on that level and having the pleasure of that.
I know, and on the flip side, I know women who go, oh, I prefer to have a glass of wine than have sex, or I prefer chocolate than sex. I'm like, you have not had good sex then. You are not having the best sex. You have not really had proper sex ever, because you would never say that if you'd had proper sex. But again, it's like, where are we as individuals? Most people are disembodied from themselves. They're not in trust of themselves. They don't want to live in vulnerability. There's so much shame around things like sex. So, there's just so much shame. There's so much to be shed from this world. But when we shed it, and this is a great year to do it, by the way, everyone, because this is the year of the snake. This is all about shedding and rebirthing. This could not be better timing. So we need to shed so much stuff and just come back to our, as you say, that sovereignty and who we are, and be liberated and free, and just let it go. Let it go, girls. Let it go, guys. Come on.
Yeah. It's interesting. You said something just popped in. I'll share this. A client I was working with was actually a female, and she instigated sex with her partner. And he literally said, oh, I'm not really that bothered because I'll have to warm you up. And I was just like, I had to hold my mouth from hitting the floor. But I'm like, if this is the numbness and escapism that we've got to, that's the way you're perceiving it, then, that's, get out of there or do something. But, like, there's so much incredible connection through sex, experience, pleasure, joy. But everything takes effort. You have to put in. You are the source of what you see. Give what you want to receive. But yeah, I was just like, even I felt my mouth when I hit the floor, and I'm like, okay, I got to keep a straight face here. But I'm like, fuck, continue on.
But you hear it all as a coach sometimes, don't you? Or as a friend. Sometimes I just go to the loo and like wherever, and somebody randomly comes in and starts telling me all this kind of stuff anyway. So I hear random stuff from people all the time. I've just got one of those faces, I think people tell stuff, and I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Woo!
I know the feeling.
Anyway, that was great. There was like some really juicy questions. So thank you so much again for trusting us with your questions. And we can't wait to come back next week with more. Keep
And
sending
thank you to the people that are brave enough to send in, because I wish I had something like this when I was going through shit, and I wish I could have asked someone a question that I didn't know. And you take back your power when you actually, even just sending a question, even though we asked them anonymously, actually putting down in a question, this is what I'm going through in my life right now, will give you so much freedom. You just cannot actually grasp the level of freedom you can have in just being truthful about what you're going through in life.
I agree. So yeah, thank you everyone, and we will be back next week.
Thanks, guys.